Guitar tips, just the tips, just for you. Guitar tips. Hello and welcome. Welcome to Guitar Tips. My name is Adam Levy, and this is my weekly video blog series. I post a new tip here each and every Friday, and that's pretty much it. If you're a regular viewer here, you probably already know all of that stuff. Okay, but I like to mention it for the newbies, of course. Time to get to the tip. So what is the tip? What is this week's tip? This week's tip is, it's about time, it's about space. It's about time, it's about space. This tip really was inspired by a question I got on last week's tip. Last week's tip was tip number 96. And I got a comment from a viewer named Connor Smith. Connor says, "Hey Adam." Hey Connor. Any good tips on locking in with a click when recording, say for layering guitars on an album? That is a great question, and very timely. As you may be able to see by the darkness outside my window, it is evening here. And actually just got back home from a recording session where I was indeed layering guitars for an album. Well, let's see. There's really two aspects to this question. First is locking in with a click, and how I don't really know how to work on that. If you've never done a recording session in a real studio or even a semi-real studio, you may not be aware what a click is. It's a click track, which is essentially a metronome that clicks while you're recording. It's a really handy thing. They've been using it in studios for decades. It just helps so that if you're doing multiple takes of something, each take is at the exact same tempo. It helps get everybody involved a little bit more synchronized. And anyway, it's pretty standard practice. Not all producers use click tracks, but many do. It's a good skill to be able to play along with a click track. So this is my metronome. You may have seen it here before. It is a Korg MA30. It is nothing special. It has a very basic feature set, and it essentially goes click, 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 and you can speed it up and slow it down. And that's all I really need to practice playing with a click. You could and should practice playing, first of all, just quarter notes. And if you want to play something more musical than that, you can. But the idea is to make some music based on quarter notes at that pulse. There could be some rests as well, but something where the basic subdivision of time is a quarter note, which that is. And then I would practice playing, well, I'll let it click, eighth notes at that click. Again, it could be something with rests. It doesn't have to be steady. It could be. And whatever you're working on, do it for a whole minute so you really can get into it. Don't just let yourself rush from thing to thing. Spend some time in it, because at a recording session, that's more like what it'll be. You'll have to play whatever your part is. For a whole verse or maybe a whole live take or whatever. And then, you could continue playing things based on quarter note triplets, eighth note triplets, 16th notes, whatever. Again, trying to make some real music within the subdivisions and include some rests and spaces and stuff like that. But I don't know what else to tell you as far as like practicing playing with a click is, practice with a metronome. And sometimes I'll even leave the metronome on when I'm not playing guitar. I'll just have it on while I'm reading the New Yorker or eating a sandwich or what have you. And just get into feeling steady time. And I like to practice mostly at slower tempos, but of course you should practice at a wide variety of tempos, because you really never know what's going to what could be thrown at you at a recording session. So that's one tip. Another thing that I've gotten into doing recently is practicing with headphones on in Logic, and plugging my, if you're into electric guitar, plugging my guitar in directly, or if you're playing acoustic guitar, miking up your acoustic. And I'll take a song that I like, could be anything really, and fly the MP3 of it into Logic. You could do this in Pro Tools if you like Pro Tools, and then open up a new channel and plug in your electric or your acoustic, whatever, and practice playing along with headphones on. If you're recording for a real recording session, 99.9% of the time you're doing it in headphones, and yet that's something we rarely, at least in my experience, most guitar players that I've known and students and what have you don't practice that way with headphones on. But it's a lot closer to what you're going to do in a studio. So that's what I'll do. I'll open up Logic, fly in a song, and then play along, or try and come up with a new part, or try and maybe find something that doesn't have a guitar part so that there's more room for me to play on. But the main idea is just to practice making music, hearing yourself in headphones rather than hearing yourself with your amp in the room, which oftentimes you don't get to do at a recording studio. So it's good to practice something that's kind of uncomfortable so that it becomes more comfortable, which is hearing your electric guitar disembodied from the amp, which could be in a closet or in another room, or could just be DI. So that's something to do. But the aspect of this tip where I say it's about time, it's about space. Space is what I wanted to talk about as far as layering guitar parts. So I want to talk about something that I covered in a much earlier tip, in tip number 13, be your own jam buddy. I mentioned that if you're working on jazz, you could use a cassette recorder or whatever, your iPhone if you'd like, and a metronome, and get some steady time going. It could be, a little faster here. And practice playing rhythm. Like you could take an 8-bar chord progression, say, and with the click going, play the chord progression for 8 bars, and then improvise for 8 bars, and then chord progression, improvise, chord progression, improvise, chords, improv, etc. And then after you've done it for, say, 5 minutes, then play it back and play back the recording, and now switch roles. So when the U on the tape or on your iPhone or whatever is playing chords, you improvise, and when the U on the recording is improvising, you play the chords. That's a great way to practice jazz, but it's also a really great way to practice layering guitar parts. So let's say you've got your 2 parts that you want to play. So you get the clicker going, and it could just be one section of a song. Could be a verse, could be a chorus, could be whatever. And you play the one, you get the clicker going, and then you record yourself playing one part. And then at the end of the however many bars that cycle is, 8 or 16 or 12 or whatever, you play the other part. And you just go back and forth between the 2 parts. Then when you play the recording back, you switch parts. So this is a chance to practice playing in time, because you're going to use a metronome. It's a chance to practice listening to yourself, listening to the click, and listening to the click and to a musical part, which will be the thing that you played, and learning to react to both, to the really metronomic, scientific groove that's happening, and as well as the part that's going to be a little more human, and that's the music part that you played, and how to react to both of those things. Now, if you're not sure how to craft two different guitar parts over a simple chord progression, usually I just go for polar opposites. So one part could be low, the other part could be high. One part could be fast, one part could be slow, etc. Yeah, there's that you could think about a lot of different ways to make opposites. One part could be hungry, one part could be thirsty, one part could be I'll let you fill in the blanks. This is where you can be creative, but you get the basic idea. In the end, sometimes the two parts that I'll come up with when I'm trying to layer parts, they may not be polar opposites, but I find that that's a good place to start. In the end, they may be closer together. Sometimes I'll come up with two parts that actually weave together and sound like one big thing. So it's not always the case that you want to come up with two different personalities, but that's a good place to start, thinking about two distinct musical identities and staying in character when you're playing one or the other. Could be one is with a pick, one is with fingers, etc., etc., etc. Melodic, chordal, etc., etc. Okay, enough about layering parts. That's the big idea this week. It's about time, it's about space, and it's about music, and it's about you, and it's not about you. It's about time that I wrap up this guitar tip. Is about what time it is right now. So just a quick mention, Martin Guitar Strings is a steady sponsor of Guitar Tips, and I really appreciate that. Thank you, Martin Guitar Strings. And I also wanted to mention that if you're interested in Skype private lessons, please email me at guitartips@adamlevy.com, and we will work out the details. Thank you so much. For Guitar Tips, I'm Adam Levy. Stay tuned and take good